All right, good morning. So my name is Staff Sergeant Rice. Welcome to day 4 of the Master Fitness Trainer course. All right, hopefully this is a pleasant change of scenery for you. You've been in our laboratory, our classroom for the last few days. Now you're back into the same training facility that you started in when we ran you through your initial assessment. But since it's been a couple of days since you've been here, I'm going to run you through, or I'm going to refamiliarize you with this location. So again, we do have 2 exits to this building. We have one behind you to my left, one in front of you to my right. In the event of emergency where we need to vacate this premises, we're going to exit the door that you came in to my left. We're going to go across the street to the climbing pods. If there's an emergency where we need to stay in here, we need to shelter in place, we will lock the doors, ensure all the blinds are closed. We're going to get to the back of the room, lay low and lay quiet until we get the all clear. We need to make sure with regards to safety, our safety level in here is going to be low. Because we're in a gym and there's a lot of equipment, please be cognizant of equipment that may be on the ground as you maneuver around when we get into the practical application of this. Please make sure that all of your equipment, gear, water, etc. is on the side of the room. This is a green installation, so we do recycle. Please gather all of your recyclables so when you leave here, the recycle container is going to be in the gravel parking lot where you parked at the track. What we're here today to cover is the 4 core lifts, something that we've been talking about with regards to program design, with regards to exercise selection, and the specificity of exercise order when it comes to your high performance demand tasks for your MOS, your medal, and all other tasks that you have to be able to perform as a soldier. Now, one phrase we've been using over and over again is we've been calling you and all soldiers tactical athletes, and we've been trying to really get that importance of that phrase into you. As a tactical athlete, what is our version of our version of a competition? Where do we compete? Combat, absolutely. War. And with regards to us and war, when we are designing a program, when we are putting together these training sessions for our soldiers, it is important to understand that every physical readiness training program should be deliberately designed in order to increase combat lethality. Failure to do so will not only decrease our overall level of performance, it will also ensure that we're at a higher risk of injury. This makes us a liability to ourselves and to one another. When we lose a game, we lose a life, and that is unacceptable. So one of the purposes that you are here for as a Master Fitness Trainer is to develop the ability to discern the biomechanical and the physiological demands of certain tasks that you have to be able to perform at your unit, and to be able to put together a program to optimize your performance and both mitigate injury. And that's what brings us here today to these 4 core lifts. We need to be able to develop strength, whether it's to pull one of your soldiers out of fire, to be able to evacuate a casualty, to be able to subdue an enemy with close quarter combat. Regardless of what your task is, we need to be able to train optimally for it. So with some of the things that we mentioned with resistance training program, what are some variables that make a core lift a core lift?
Loading the axial spine.
Excellent. So you load the axial skeleton that's coming from your skull all the way down through your vertebral column and your rib cage. So that must stay in line. How many of you have performed a squat or a deadlift before? Normal in your training program perform squats and deadlifts? Good, a good amount of you. How many of you, when you do so, or when you watch someone else perform that, you see them look up to the ceiling as asking for help for that lift? Right? A lot of people. So let me give you an example of why that may be inefficient. Let me get the strongest student in this room. Whoever thinks they're the strongest student in this room. Everyone's pointing at you, Sergeant Warner, so you can go and come up. Or, if you feel you are, you're like, no, it's me. Let me have you come up here, please, for a second. Please watch the bar. Let me have you just face them. I want you to abduct your left arm to 90 degrees. There we go. Good. Starting to pull those terms together, right? All right. All I want you to do is be able to resist me pushing down your arm. So he's quite stable. You see it's not moving anywhere, right? So that isometric contraction is not moving anywhere. Now, I want you to do the same thing. Resist me as much as you can and look up. Where did that power and stability go? Went out the window. Once you take that axial skeleton out of alignment, you're losing your ability to be able to perform optimally with regards to these lifts. So when you have yourself or your soldiers who tend to look either at a mirror or look up, taking that cervical spine into extension and out of that alignment, this is taking away from their ability to perform that lift at their highest level. Thank you very much. All right, so it's loading the axial skeleton. What is another variable that comes with a core lift? Excellent, both of you at the same time. So multiple muscle groups is something that uses multiple joints. Are there any questions on what makes something a core lift? Excellent. So with all of these exercises, setup is paramount, or is of paramount importance. So starting with the ground, we need to make sure that we have a good setup with our feet. In order to discern where that is for you, all you need to do is go ahead and relax your body a little bit. I want you to close your eyes and just jump up and down a few times. Just a few times. All right, I know few may be a little subjective on number. That's fine, that's good. So where your feet are now is typically a good position for you to start with this squat and a deadlift. These tools can help you kind of see where you are at. In order to help reinforce where your knee stability is as well, or the amount of knee stability that's performed, go ahead and put your feet out at that angle, that exaggerated angle again. Go ahead and come down to about a half to full squat. Push in your knees with your hands and try and push your hands back out with your knees. And see how much valgus your knees can actually come through, how close your knees can actually go in as you press. Hopefully you're starting to see how these small components come into play when it comes to these exercises. The more stable you are as you're receiving that load with that weight, whether that weight is on your back or whether you're picking it up off the floor with regards to the deadlift, it is going to help you increase your performance and mitigate injury at the same time. So you'll be able to perform better, get more out of it, whether that's a higher intensity or more volume. Keeping your body nice and tall, your axial skeleton nice and tall, I want you to hinge at your hips without flexing your knees until your hands come to your patella, until your hands come to knee height. You should have no flexion in your elbows and no flexion in your knees. From this point, you are now going to flex your knees, keeping your hands directly where they are so that they go straight down in front of you. Good. That's going to be the eccentric part of the movement for the deadlift. That's when you already have the weight up and you are coming down. Now, in order to pick this up, if you had the bar in front of you as you're simulating with this pronated grip, the first thing comes with driving through the floor with your feet until your hands come to your knee level. Once your hands are at that knee level, I just want you to use your glutes, contract your glutes, to extend your hips forward. So with that in mind, now you have your foot set, now you have that motion of the hip hinge and the knee movement. Let's get into the demonstration of this exercise. If I can have my demonstrator please come for the deadlift. So Sergeant Barry is going to help me out. He's going to show you the traditional deadlift. So with this, he's going to perform that hip hinge with a slight amount of knee flexion, keeping that comfortable stance position where he already knows where it's at. From this position, I want you to notice something visually. We put a light weight on the bar for a reason. If he engages his lats properly, you can see that axial skeletal alignment. You're going to see the weight already come off of the ground. If this is a heavier weight, that engagement is exactly the same, but the weight will not move. That must happen to make sure that your scapula, your shoulder blades, stay in place and are as stable as possible throughout this motion. Since he starts with the concentric motion, what does he need to do before he lifts that bar? He needs to inhale. He's going through an eccentric motion before he even lifts it. He's going to exhale through the concentric motion to the top of that position. He will inhale again through that eccentric motion, creating that diaphragmatic breath and that intra-abdominal pressure in order to create stability for that lift. Are there any questions with the traditional form of the deadlift as you've seen Sergeant Barry demonstrate? Yes?
How far the bar is from your shins affect like the strength and the power you have in performing the deadlift?
That is an excellent question. So, the more movement you have to do with the bar toward you or leaning toward the bar is going to take away from your overall stability. You would like ideally a straight line from gravity, through your center of gravity rather, to create that level of stability. So there's two ways to approach the bar. You can either get your comfortable position and bring the bar to you as you come into that squat, fully engaging your lats and getting that intra-abdominal pressure during that motion, or Sergeant Barry can engage his core, approach the bar, set his feet to separate the ground, then get down into that eccentric squat of that motion to grab the bar and perform that concentric motion. You do not want the bar to move forward or backward during this lift. Does this answer your question?
Yes, Sergeant, thank you.
Excellent. Very good question. Yes, if you are performing the deadlift with an alternate grip and you're doing it for overall conditioning, it is absolutely beneficial to be able to shift which grip you're using, whether your left is pronated, right is supinated, or etc. However, if you are going to be able to perform a competition which allowed you to do an alternate grip, why would you maybe want to practice only one grip? One side may be stronger than the other? Why else? That's an excellent point, but what does that lead to? Absolutely. So we keep talking about specificity and the SAID principle, right? Specific adaptations to impose demands. If you're going to perform a specific way, you should train a very specific way. However, to prevent asymmetry, it is good to be able to practice on both sides. Good. Did I see another question? Yes.
So what is a good coaching cue if we have someone that always looks up? Is there a
Wonderful. I'm really glad that you asked that question. So if Sergeant Barry typically went through cervical extension, when you did this, one thing you do is you can take a ball, a mobility ball, and you can have this individual hold that ball to their chest with their chin. So when he performs this motion, he's going to be in slight cervical flexion, but it allows you to teach him the mechanics of preventing that motion. Now this ball may be a little too short for him, so you can get a bigger ball. I got it. You can get a bigger ball to help get him into that position, or a bigger object, but you want to do something to get him into a neutral position. And then once they've developed that physical literacy, you can load the pattern without it and have that carry over. Good. So we're going to move from a traditional deadlift to what you performed during your first assessment when you were here, which is a trap bar deadlift. Do you think the trap bar deadlift is easier or harder than the traditional deadlift? Oh, I hear a little bit of both. So why might it, that's a good point, why might it be harder for some instead of others? Right here. Can you say it again, sir? Because they may not have trained in it. Sergeant Bradford, do you typically do deadlift?
No, and I typically never
No?
done that until we came.
All right, so she hasn't done either, right? So that's maybe the level of difficulty with it. It's less stable?
Less stable than the rest.
Now, why would you say that?
Because it will rotate more than the other one.
All right, so when it comes to not performing the lift, not having experience with the lift, if someone doesn't have the grip strength to maintain, what type of grip position is the trap bar done in? Excellent, a neutral grip position. If they don't have the grip strength to maintain a neutral grip position, as some of you experience, you may see some movement with that bar in that sagittal plane, right? It may shift forward towards you, or the rear may shift towards you. Now, in general though, this lift, based on how your center of gravity is managed, is a much easier lift. So this is typically used as a regression for safety. However, that is an important variable to keep in mind, that if a soldier doesn't typically train with a neutral position, that may need to be established prior to loading them heavily on this bar. So I'm very glad that you brought that up. The principles with the traditional deadlift remain the same as the trap bar deadlift. You still want to be able to separate the earth and provide that stability throughout the hips and the knees, give him that comfortable position. As you mentioned, he's going to have a neutral grip. Now you'll see the bar there's a horizontal part of this bar. He should be in line with this at his ankles and at his wrist. This is going to help prevent that bar from moving forward or backward and rotating. He's still going to perform that axioskeletal alignment. He's going to perform that intra-abdominal pressure through a diaphragmatic breath, and he still extends at the hips and knees to the top position without shrugging. The bar should move straight up and down as he performs this motion without him going through cervical flexion or cervical extension, and everything remains the same. With the traditional and the trap bar deadlift, we're teaching you how to be able to pick something up off of the ground, whether this is a soldier in a litter that you're trying to take out of a bad situation that you don't want to be in, whether it's picking up equipment and taking it from one location to another, even if it's outside of the military aspect. Anytime you have to pick a heavy weight off the ground or any type of weight off the ground, you have to perform this lift. It is a cornerstone to a lot of things that you do. It is the cornerstone for your overall fitness. This is a total body exercise that can help increase the stability of your core and your overall strength and level of performance. Do I have any questions on the performance of either deadlift and what you are looking for? Yes?
Well, the width of this one is set, so does that diminish your ability to lift more or less?
Very good. We're very glad that you're starting to look at all these other variables. That may absolutely be a factor for some individuals, as we talked about before, with the grip being so wide. You're going to have to go down lower in order to accommodate for the height of your arms at that position. So depending on the height of the individual and the length of their arms, that absolutely may be a variable. Can you simulate this lift without a trap bar? Can you do the same lift without a trap bar? Yes. What else could you use instead? Kettlebells and dumbbells. Now the weight, you're going to be limited, of course, due to the weight of the equipment that you have with you, but you can simulate a neutral grip in order to pick up something exactly like this, like you would for a litter or an ammo can or things of that nature. Good. Yes?
Speaking about grip, there's individuals that, you're showing outside the legs. Is there a disadvantage to going inside the legs?
So the difference with going inside the legs, what type of lift is that for deadlift? What is that called? Excellent. That's called a sumo deadlift. That puts you at a mechanical advantage because you have less range of motion and you actually have to move. So with that, you can lift a lot more weight in a sumo deadlift, but it won't tax your system the same as a normal deadlift will. Not in the very specific method that a normal deadlift will. Excellent. Did I answer your question? Good. Is everyone starting to see the relevancy of training these lifts? Good. And this, how many of you are familiar with the OPAT? A few of you. So the OPAT